free energy sources to market. Fantastic. And he had an agreement for inventors to contact him through the website, and you could go and read this. It's about 10 pages long, this agreement, and you could send him an email, and he would, connect you with the right funds and the right people. Now, I've got a lot of text on this, but it's just merely to illustrate a point rather than for me to read it all out. Now, I thought Seize Power was a fantastic idea. Somebody was actually trying to get free energy devices out. Greer went on the radio, he was openly talking about this, and so on. And then in 2007, he starts talking about something called Aero 2012. And this was an initiative to get free energy devices out to the public and connect inventors with investment funds. I thought, I think I've heard that before somewhere. And so I went onto this Aero 2012 website, and it was an identical copy of the Seize Power website except for the colour scheme and the logo. All the pages were the same, all the technical agreements were the same, and so on. And I've just got one page from there. Why Aero? An overview for inventors, an historical overview of over-unity electric generators and other conventional energy innovations. That's Aero 2012 on the left. The Seize Power website went down. Eventually they overlapped for a period of time. Why Seize? An overview for inventors, an historical overview of over-unity electric generators and so on. Identical. So I thought, what's he doing? Well, what he's doing is he's collecting information and passing it to a third party. That's what he's doing.
He's seizing it.
Well, yeah, you could say that. So that's what this Seize Power and these Aero 2012 initiatives are for, because Aero 2012 then went down. Greer started the Orion project, and he was sending out he wanted to collect $3 million for that. Now, the Aero 2012 thing, he posted this 1 or 2 hour presentation, but he didn't show any, I've shown you video clips from the Channel 4 documentary, I've shown you Pons and Fleischmann, I've shown you Bruce De Palma. In this 2 hour presentation that Greer did in 2007 to launch Aero 2012, all he had in the background, you can just see it there, that was a screenshot of the Aero 2012 website. And he just talked for 2 hours about free energy devices. He didn't show any of the results of this Seize Power project. He didn't say what was successful, what had failed, what he'd done wrong, what had happened to him, whether his life had been threatened. None of that. It was just all this sort of positive sounding spiel. But I'd heard it all before. So I was wise to it. So it appears that Greer is collecting information. I'm not going to play the clips, we're going to run short of time. Yeah, and he won't talk about 9/11. A lot of these people will not talk about 9/11. And they won't talk about what I talk about a lot, which is Dr. Judy Wood's research, which I'll come to. Tom Bearden is also hooked in with Greer, and he's also hooked in with Tony Craddock, who is an oil industry consultant who runs the website cheniere.org. He owns that website, which is Bearden's website. And Bearden supposedly produced this free energy device, but apparently it doesn't work. It's a motionless electromagnetic generator. But Tony Craddock is connected to Bearden and Greer. So deaths, we've covered some of these. Wilhelm Reich was found dead in his prison cell, 1957. Bruce De Palma, dead in 1997. Stan Meyer, dead, apparently March, I thought it was 2003, but it was 1998. Eugene Mallove, dead. James Black, on August 2003. He was a Nobel laureate, 1988, Nobel laureate for medicine. Black was found dead in his car, I think, on August 1st, 2003. He attempted to sue US-Canadian government over their actions against John Hutchison's research, and he was found on his bed in his apartment. The autopsy, no, it wasn't his car. The autopsy described it as a natural death, a possible heart attack. At the time of his death, he was 51 years old, in perfect health, and had never had any heart problems. Ari M. de Geus, November 11th, 2007, inventor of a revolutionary self-powering battery of AMDG Scientific Corporation, was found slumped in his car. This is what I was getting mixed up with. Totally unresponsive in the long-term parking lot of the Charlotte. Michael Zabur, name probably not familiar. He was the nephew of William Zabur, and William Zabur worked with Eugene Mallove to set up the New Energy Foundation. Michael Zabur was Judy Wood's student. Yeah. March 19th, 2006, he was shot in the head in a mugging. And he was Judy Wood's student. So there's a direct link. I'm not going to go into cover that. So how do we get access to free energy devices? One YouTube posting describes what happens. I mentioned this, but it's worth re-emphasising, I think. Stan Meyer and then many others, always the same story. The Pentagon wants to see your idea, tell you how they would like to use your invention. You demonstrate your device, proving it to them that it works. Then they block off all your efforts and end up killing you. The only way to get a free energy device out to the public is to forget about patents, distribute it underground, sell it to EV enthusiasts with the plans and encourage them to travel around and do as you are. You then have created a non-interlinked underground distribution system that will spread like the general populace, and it will spread like wildfire and will be unstoppable. That's right. You've got to do something like that. But the problem is, you can build a device, but you've got to make it so that it works 24/7. And to do something like that, you need some significant manufacturing skills, machine shop skills. Not many people have got access to those. That's the problem. I'm going to come on to this now. The weaponisation connection. This is also why we haven't got free energy. And this is all from Dr. Judy Wood's material. I think probably a good few people are familiar. Looking at the events of 9/11, you have to re-examine them if you want to know what happened. A lot of people talk about all kinds of stories about remote-controlled planes and bombs in the building and thermite and micronukes, underground nukes, basically anything except what actually happened. And this set of pictures unlocks the door. This is the key. You see 70 stories of steel turning to dust before your very eyes. And if you watch some of these pieces, you can actually see them turning to dust before they hit the ground. They are turning to dust as they are falling. This is technology in plain view. Technology in plain view. Everyone now can see this for themselves. Free energy technology at work. No explosions, no heat, no flames, no sparks.
Paper wasn't burned, was it?
Paper was unburned. This is technology, folks. This is what's happened to the free energy technology. You haven't got it, running your car and your house because they already knew about this, and I think they knew about this technology at least in 1983. At least in 1983. Probably well before that. Probably in the 50s, because it links into the anti-gravity technology as well, which you also haven't got access to. I've done another presentation about anti-gravity technology. And again, you'll see the spire here sticking up, and the camera zooms in on this section, and you'll see it. Now, I'd never really seen this set of pictures until about 2006 when Dr. Judy Wood showed them to me, and she, she's obviously gone on to research many more of the details in relation to this since then, and she's put this into her book, Where Did the Towers Go?
You see that in slow motion.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
You see the explosion.
So, there's no explosions. It's actually it's an expulsion of material to some extent. There aren't any explosions. So this is 110 stories of building turning to dust in 10 seconds. This is perhaps the clearest shot, and you can see the stuff coming off. But we don't know who has this technology. People say, it's the US government, George Bush did it, the Israelis did it, the Zionists did it, the Jesuits did it. We don't know. We don't know. I don't know this technology. But we do know two of the companies that are involved. Science Applications International Corporation and Applied Research Associates. Funnily enough, Science Applications International Corporation is mentioned 5 times in Stephen Greer's disclosure document. But he doesn't talk about this. He's never contacted me or Dr. Judy Wood to say, what about this energy weapon then? I've never heard him speaking about it, and yet this has been on the table since 2006. And certainly the Hudson effect connection, which we'll come to next, has been on the table since 2008. Unburned paper littered the streets. People levitated but not burned by the dust cloud. No bright flashes seen as the towers came down. The key point is, what technology can do this kind of destruction with little or no observable heat generated? Similar to cold fusion, remember? Energy coming out. Or similar to Meyer's cell, I should say. Energy coming out but very little heat. 80 to 90% of 2 of the world's tallest buildings disappeared in 20 seconds. Where is the rubble? This is World Trade Center Building 7. That was destroyed at 5:20 in the evening. This was taken before 5:20 in the evening. There should be the remains of 200 stories of buildings there. And instead we've got, I'll just show you these little clips here. That's the amount of the height of the pile based on there, so you can see quite clearly.
It was all metal in between the
Yeah.
concrete.
It got turned into talcum powder dust.
Yeah, there it is, and there's the dust, some of it. Raging car fires, paper not burning, only a few inches away. These are not conventional fires, so it would appear they might turn into conventional fires at some point, but initially not. What's happened to this car? We've got some plastic surviving on the top, yet this is so badly burned, or it looks burned, but it's not burned. The door handle's gone, the trunk's popped open, this is all gone. So what's going on? And this is some of the much of the evidence that Dr. Judy Wood has compiled. And here's the levitation effect. I think this proves that gravity comes into play here. When you open up this energy system, this energy source, when you connect to 0 point energy, you get these weird effects coming out. Truck upside down, car upside down, car upside down, car upside down, car right way up. Energy effects seen at the World Trade Center, not talked about, kept well out of the media, as Neil was talking about.
Engine block's gone.
Yep, it's all in the book, and we've done videos as well. One pane only broken there. Why is only one pane broken? Those windows were not damaged by projectiles, by things flying through them. They were damaged by longitudinal waves, vibrations. Same again, only one pane damaged. How do you work that out? It's because it's not what you think it is. Oh, and how about this? Not a lot of people want to talk about this either, because now we're way off into outer space. Hurricane Erin on 9/11. The eye shaped like a pentacle. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm just trying to get through the information now. But the key thing with the Hurricane Erin data is the path. When I wrote to the government propaganda unit called Act on CO2, which is one of these things that's meant to encourage businesses to use energy efficiently, I says, right, so Act on CO2 then, so you know about the climate change and stuff like that. Well, tell me about Hurricane Erin then. Hurricane Erin starts as a hurricane, or was registered as a hurricane, on the 1st of September in the Atlantic. Travelled for 6 days and hit Bermuda on the 7th. Did a bit of damage at Bermuda. And then, guess what? Went in a straight line towards New York City, ending up at 8 o'clock in the morning, closest to New York City. And then on the 12th, it made a right-hand turn and went off out towards Newfoundland. Oh, it's just a coincidence. They wrote back to me and said, this Act on CO2 propaganda arm wrote back to me and said, oh, well, Mr. Johnson, I'm afraid that September is hurricane season in the USA. September is hurricane season in the USA. Yes, I did know that, but this particular hurricane was closest to New York City at 8 o'clock in the morning, just before those terrible events in New York unfolded. They wrote back to me and said, I've got nothing to add to my previous letter. I bet you haven't. So there's the size of the hurricane. This is Dr. Wood's slide that she put together. It actually slowed down, and the expanse of the storm became larger as it got close to New York, and then it shrunk down in the couple of days following. Oh dear, we have some problems with the stories of planes too, folks, because if you look at this particular slide that Dr. Wood had put together, this is actually the Earth's magnetic field measured in Alaska by 6 different magnetometers. They're devices that measure the strength of the Earth's magnetic field. And at 8:46, we have a minimum in this trace. Guess what happened at 8:46? That's right. The first plane, or so-called plane, it wasn't a plane, struck the World Trade Center. So how is it possible that the Earth's magnetic field detected this plane approaching Tower 1 20 minutes before it actually happened, 3,500 miles away? The answer is it wasn't a plane, it was an energy burst which created the hole, some type of energy burst. And that whatever system it was that they used, I would contend was charging up before that actually happened. They were charging it up. And indeed, in John Hutchison's experiments, which I'll try and come to if we get a chance, John Hutchison, in his experiments, the effects only happen after he's run the equipment for about half an hour, something like that, in many cases. Since 1979, he's been doing experiments with electrostatic and magnetic fields, microwaves and RF generators. In certain combinations and at certain times, John has produced jellification of metal, bending and fracturing of metal, levitation, transmutation. Remember that? John Bockris talking about one metal turning into another. That's why we think the Hutchison effect and cold fusion is related. And that's why Jones was put on the 9/11 case, to divert people away from things like transmutation and the effects that are related to cold fusion, which are energy effects. Fuming, which is what was seen coming up out of the World Trade Center after the events. That's not necessarily smoke. The reaction didn't stop. Disappearance of samples. Some samples appear to have disappeared completely. And fusing of dissimilar materials like metal and wood. And this is all in Dr. Wood's book and on our websites and stuff. I haven't got time to play the clip. I'll play a little bit of this. And guess what? John Hutchison actually filmed these weird fire effects too. This is an experiment he did. The caption was wrong. He actually did this in 2006, I found. And what he's doing is he's intersecting electric and magnetic fields, radio frequency fields, and in this area he's actually trying to do a reproduction of the famed Philadelphia experiment, where he was trying to make they tried to make the ship disappear. Again, that's a whole other story about that. But you can see that these fires appear to start, but there's no fuel. There's no obvious source for combustion. On 9/11, this firefighter is walking through this paper, which appears to be burning. He doesn't appear to be worried about that. Why would he be walking so close to that burning material? Well, what if it wasn't hot? I think you'll see this flame coming up. So all this is documented. It's all out there, but almost nobody will talk about it. I think you just get another burst of flame in a minute. And then I'll go on to the next clip. So what Dr. Wood basically did in her research, which I haven't openly stated, she found that many of the effects that she'd been cataloguing since about 2004 were actually matched up with effects created in John Hutchison's experiments. This is a 3-inch solid copper bar. This is a beam which is from the remains of the World Trade Center, which is kept by WJE for NIST. This is an aluminium bar that appears to have all delaminated itself and melted in peculiar ways. This is from the World Trade Center. This is an experiment which John did in November 2008, and he levitates this wrench. This is from the World Trade Center. And we've got recently another witness account that actually came out on the 11th this year, this Bozelli guy. He floated down the stairs while the building was being destroyed around him. I've just posted that on my website. So we've got all these effects. I'm going through this very quickly, but these effects line up precisely. This guy,
and I picked up the camera.
This is David Hanshirk. I won't play all his testimony. He was levitated.
My mind said, run, run, run. And never in 20 years of shooting in New York have I run from an assignment. But something in the back of my head just said, run. And as I hit the corner of Liberty Street, it was almost being picked up by a tornado, almost being picked up by a wave. It was like being picked up by
the black cloud.
That black cloud had substance. It was like night, but it had a solid feel to it. It was like gravel, hot gravel, and just picked me up and tossed me about a block. At one second I was running, and the next second I was airborne. And I lost my glasses, I lost my cell phone, I lost my pager, but managed to hold on to both cameras.
But it threw you for a block?
I was back down at Ground Zero last week and walked the area where I have a pretty good recollection of where I was and where I wound up, and it was just under a city block.
There was this blast of warm air. It wasn't hot. It was warm. And it picked me up and threw me up against the wall of the building that was...
You were picked up off the ground?
Physically picked up off the ground.
I remember an explosion. At that point, I got knocked out. I don't remember anything. Then I got up, and I looked out the window because the windows exploded, and the street below caved in.
So he describes being lifted up, and we've got a lot of witnesses of this. There's some more. Again, I'm getting up close up to the time. We found quite a number of people that were lifted off the ground. Firemen were running along and their hats lifted off. One guy said he saw his hat floating away in front of him like the Wizard of Oz. So all these effects, metal effects, again, John Hutchison's experiment on the left and the World Trade Center on the right. Bankers Trust Building, again, some very peculiar effects in that. I'm running out of time, so I realise I'm sort of more or less doing flashcards with these. But this very peculiar damage here. And in the building, this here is paint. This is paint. So if this was heat that melted this, why didn't this paint burn off? Think of the intense heat that would be required to melt that into that form. But this paint is still on. And here, you can just see at the edge, there's a telephone cable from a telephone. You can just see it coiled up. How did that survive? And then they repaired the Bankers Trust building. There it is, July 2006. They repaired it all. Repaired the exterior sections of it, and then they took it all down piece by piece at a cost of $70 million. It's gone now. Took them about 4 years to dismantle it.
Did it keep rusting?
Yeah, it had an ongoing rust problem which they declared as a mould infection. Bankers Trust was said to have a mould infection and they had to take it down. Steel frame building. So, dissimilar materials merge again. We've seen this with John Hutchison's experiments where a stainless steel knife merged with an aluminium block and then he sliced through it with a grinder to grind down so you can see the layers. And then we see this thing going through a tree, straw going into trees, this pole going into the wood here. What it appears is that in powerful storms you get strong electrical field effects which are having some effect under certain circumstances on the materials and causing them to lose their coherency, if you will. That's what appears to be happening. But we're never told about that. Now, Dr. Wood observed that John Hutchison uses a Tesla coil in his experiments, or he used to, he doesn't so much now. And this, you build up a large charge on the top here. This is like a storm system. And what did we have? We had the hurricane. So we would contend, I mean, she doesn't say this exactly like I do, but the weapon, as was, required a mixture of different types of energy. And one of the types of energy came from the static field associated with the storm. That's what it appears to have been. Just a bit about the cover-up now, a couple of slides about that. I've decided that I'm going to form a group called Liars for 9/11 Truth. Okay? This will include Alex Jones, Richard Gage, Jim Fetzer, Stephen E. Jones, Dmitry Karlazov, probably people like Richard Dolan, probably Stephen Greer as well. So I'll be putting up a website for that. The main culprit of one of the cover-ups is Jim Fetzer. He invited me to join the Scholars for 9/11 Truth group in 2005, along with Stephen E. Jones. And he wrote to me, "You have taken for granted that Hutchison research is well-founded or at least sincere." No, that was untrue. I'd known of John Hutchison's research since 1998 or 1999, having come across it in a book by Albert Budden, and also it was discussed on $1 Billion Secret. And Fetzer wrote to Dr. Judy Wood on 3rd of March 2008, "Just between us, if Judy were to back off her relations with Hutchison, whom I consider to be a fraud, I think her standing can be salvaged." That was a threat. Yeah. And he's since that time had, he's claimed to have supported this book on his website, but when you go and listen to his radio interviews, he gets about 6 or 7 different people to say why Dr. Wood's work's only a theory, or why it might not be true, and on and on. You can read about all that in my book. I'm only covering it in very quick form here. We're getting up to the end of the time. Architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, they would not put their thermite evidence into a legal challenge in 2007. I've written about that. I won't cover all that. It's got a plane in it, running out of time. But supporters who have of the Architects and Engineers group who have put Judy Wood on their profile have had the references to Judy Wood deleted off their profile without their permission. So if you go onto this Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth website, set up a profile and put on a link to Dr. Judy Wood's website, I can almost guarantee that within 48 hours it will be taken off.
Now, with Judy Woods is not going to acknowledge any of that evidence and just hand wave it away, then she's not practicing science. she's practicing witchcraft. Go ahead.
So Richard Gage, head of architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, says that that 500-page science textbook is being done by somebody practicing witchcraft. That's what he says. And he's just had a big splash on PBS in the States with this expert speak out about 9/11, and everyone's raving about it, when in actuality it's just another cover-up because it's bombs in the building.
It's so one-sided.
It is. And I tried to put a press release about Erin, the Erin research that I showed you in 2008 on Op-Ed News. They refused to publish it. That's Op-Ed News, which is an alternative news website. PESWiki, Free Energy, that's quite a good resource, but Stephen E. Jones has got his own page on PESWiki about energy systems, and you can go and read that, but I don't think it mentions cold fusion. You won't find a page about Judy Wood on PESWiki.